Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 27th of September. Well, we caught the turnaround here, once we had the magenta rising back above yellow, and of course then when the blue pivoted above the gray line right down here. That was pretty much at the bottom of the move, right at the 38% range, and it's just continued to accelerate. We've got the follow through with the NBI with orange dipping below red here. Green now over science. All these are positives that we're getting almost positive extreme to start out. It's potential that this yellow will go into red if we move up any higher. Oftentimes in this particular case, you get this big turnaround build up and then kind of move a little bit more sideways on it. Nothing out of the ordinary. Sort of within the projections, and of course the Fed stepped in at just the right point to say, hey, we're going to continue to flood money into the setup. Likewise, the same readings in the NASDAQ was already stronger from a lot of aspects in general, and pretty much replicating the S&P read. It's pretty much identical now, so everything's back in conformity. No effect from the euro, simply because the eurozone is in a bigger disaster, and they're facing a secondary crisis because they've moved to the real implementation of their green policies, and it's causing a mini energy crisis because a lot of the renewables that they're trying to move to are not sustainable as far as needs, so they're having big issues with natural gas in that, which is what's used in a lot of cases for their electricity creation, and that could shut down a lot of different businesses. And again, just more supply disruptions, which is only going to add to inflation. Haven't seen this one in a while, throwing back bonds into the U.S. Treasury, and in watching that, it's going to be interesting because we'll see whether or not rates begin to rise based on the discount, and that's something that really will be reflective of what that inflation is. And of course, I was even asked, well, how did you know to start, looking back at oil again? Well, it's like we could see that this was starting to build in the case early on, and that would be the driving force of any inflationary pressures. And you can see as we continue to push into new highs as expected, it's going to be potentially problematic for future growth, and I think that you'll start to see some of that question mark as to whether or not businesses will start raising prices more aggressively or try to let some of it eat into returns, and that's really going to be the interesting catalyst for any additional selling. From Bitcoin, we see the big dip before it was coming from the sell signal that came in, produced a new buy, and pretty much bought up all of that moderate pressure right here, but with the magenta turning back up, looks to be short-lived on that dip and effectively turning around back to the plus side. From a 50K standpoint, and this kind of really shows it, so the dip and then literally buying it right back up to the peaks, so worked out beautifully and captured the buy signal right at the bottom of it. You'll see a slight adjustment here to the little dots. The blue just represents where we get lower pivots of blue below the 25 level. It's just a experiment. Actually, this will be available in the indicators for next month under the pink dot show me. So this way you'll have that as an opportunity to look at it. But the magenta literally becomes that crossover point of white, and particularly when you're within that orange grouping is where you've got a spike of the orange, and until it dips back below for a turnaround point, and then I believe that's actually set as an input where it turns into the gold one at the end of it, somewhere between -7 and -9, depending on the time frame you're looking at. The lower time frame set at -9. I think the higher 50K and above set at the -7.5, and it's just an indication that you can watch. It's like one of those where Okay, I see the orange is dipping. Is it going to continue or pivot back up? When it stays riding in the higher, usually you get flat to soft anyway. So it becomes relevant from that aspect. When you get the majority of it being below the zero level is where you tend to get your spikes. And in fact, here you saw it coming after P2, slight dip down, sort of that divergence, and then boom, pops right back up. So it becomes pretty easy to see into those things. You can see we have a lot of previous algo levels. In fact, a couple of them we probably just remove just to get a little clarity within the chart, but some of them are pretty consistent and not surprising. We're right at that 44.62 range, the upper side being around 73. This run-up post-market has been all under positive extremes, which takes you right back to the 46 range. And then a couple right below, down at the 39 from the previous Friday session. So those are areas to keep an eye out for. This particular stage, you've got the full DOC steel reset, so plenty of potential juice for it to ride back up, but facing a little bit of weakness here as that weight moves above the orange setup, which becomes additional setup for weakness, but countered by the bull setup there. So you probably get the return here that we usually get, where it forms that what's I think of as double top setup before it fades down lower. So we'll keep an eye on that. Of course, you've got shakeout with magenta, and that was above 15 as bar. It's actually dipping below finally. So that would be the first. So we can start to look for lower shakeout rises on higher highs or matching highs, and that would be the point where things would soften up a bit. But clean action, and the range is excellent, so no complaints. It was a very tiny volume day on Friday as it transitioned out of the September contract into the December one, which is what this current one is now what we're looking at. So all in all, beautiful, and no objections. We'll continue to post updates and any relevant changes. A lot of little updates already taking place within the indicators as we start the process of streamlining some of them to where it just makes it simpler, and the components of other ones included into it, the most effective areas, just to keep it so that the chart becomes simplified and easy to read with the color navigation, particularly when it comes to flattening tops to short signals, so that we get just at the right point without being too soon and capturing as much of the moves as possible. As always, though, look for updates on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.